Excellendum crucis, in salus mundi perpetuit.
What up? First time in a while I've streamed. Actually, first time I've done content for the Catechumen since I since I dropped Baptism Saves. That was pretty fun. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed that. I have been busy doing stuff off the scene, but my job situation has been looking up. I dropped a big client, or I guess mutually. It was bad timing, but dropped a client back near Thanksgiving has been kind of difficult. I've been scrambling to try and get some new clients, and my mic. Why didn't anyone comment? Yeah, okay, there's Lepanto. Thanks, man. Thanks. Mic is horrible. Is that better? Yeah, thanks, Seth. Okay, guys. Yeah, I spent so much on this that I didn't even know how to use it. Sorry, guys. Is that better? Mike is cooked just like I cooked on Baptism Saves. Amen, brother. Anyways, hope that's better. Life's been great. Got my job all situated. Clients are in a row, and I've been editing for Carlo, and it's been really good. Hey, I see my boy Peyton in here. I've never known how to say your name because it's Latin. I've never taken Latin. So disputatio de homine. I don't know. You can correct me on that, Mr. German, Greek, Hebrew, Latin guy. Yeah, I can't wait. I'd rather Gavin Ortland, respond to my Baptism Save song. Come on, guys. I forgot. Eric told me the OBS plugin that I needed to display your comments on the screen, and I didn't think about downloading it until I went live. So we won't display your comments again. Maybe next time. I need to stream more because this is a lot easier than preparing for videos. I tend to over-prepare for videos, and it usually takes me a long time. So, yeah, this is a little bit easier. I need to get your guys' comments up in here. I'm taking Ecclesiastical Latin this final semester. I bet that's been awesome. Gavin may respond. Yeah, my bookshelf is cooked. People who know me, when it's like Christmas or my birthday, like the main thing that I'm wanting is just books. So people have just started because they might buy a book and realize I already have it. And so they just give me money. And so I'll just purchase all of these books. I'm either going through. I just got this set of dogmatic theology. I cooked my light, guys. Live on the stream. This is the 3-volume set of dogmatic theology. Super, super good stuff. So far, I haven't gotten into it very much. But, this stuff, some of it I got. Those are the books I'm working through, and they were on my desk in my way. So I just put them back there. Sorry, guys. I need another bookshelf. I've got a bookshelf over here that's just stacked with books. I've got a problem. Help me. So, yeah, I hope Gavin responds to my bookshelf, my mic, but maybe I doubt he'll respond to anything. I guess he'll respond to everything but my rap, because that was directed directly towards Gavin Ortland. I should have name dropped him, bro. What kind of Baptist church did you come from? Mine was KJV only. So I ran into some KJV only guys, but I grew up when I was really young. We went to just an SBC church, and they weren't KJV only. And then I went to a non-denominational church. When I started going back to church by myself in high school / middle school, and they were they say they're non-denominational, so it's kind of like a mix between Baptist and Wesleyan, because those are the primary influences in my town. But they were Baptist, they had the Baptist faith and message just as their what we believe. And the pastor, and me and him are chill. I still mainly talk to his son nowadays, but good relationships there. He was a Southern Baptist pastor before he moved on to the non-denominational route. And so then in high school I went super SBC, but I was never KJV only. Really, and I don't know if I have it here. Oh yeah. So this is an ancient faith study Bible. That wasn't like the Bible I grew up on, but the Bible that I really attached myself to was the CSB, and I got a study Bible version of it. I grew up on the HCSB, the Holman Christian Study Bible or Standard Bible, and I really like that translation, but the CSB definitely improved it. And so I read the CSB primarily, especially through high school and college. I guess high school was HCSB, and then I got a study Bible, the CSB Study Bible. That's a pretty solid study Bible for like the Baptist leaning crowd. And I prefer Christian Standard Bible over English Standard Bible. And I actually think the CSB translating committee had a lot of the ESV ones on there. And so, yeah, CSB was my thing. That's what the non-denominational church used. And I would honestly read a CSB before, like a CSB Catholic edition, before I read like a second revised standard version Catholic edition, because that's what the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible is the 2 RSV CE. My hierarchy for like translations are like CSB and like NRSV, New Revised Standard Version. They're like up there, and then it's like RSV Second Catholic Edition. But I would almost rather like the regular RSV Catholic Edition rather than the second RSV Catholic Edition. And then third, I'd probably put like ESV probably. But you know, that's how it goes. I'd rather read the Greek, but I haven't practiced my Greek in so long that I used to be able to just pick up my New Testament and like from pretty much anywhere I'd be able to like read it fairly fluently. I'd have to look up a few words, but right now, like, I'd be surprised if I could just like read through First John without having to look up words. So that sucks, but maybe I'll have time to like get my Greek back. If you have a choice to learn Latin, Greek, or Hebrew, I would definitely say Greek or Latin. It's pretty even for me. The only reason I would possibly say Latin is because there's so many untranslated works from the Latin that would be really nice to be able to have. So, yeah. Do you want a pipe? I do want a pipe, Drew. I do want a pipe. Give me a pipe. Surprise me. And I don't know how much you're selling them for, but I will 1,000%, and I will blast you on the socials. I need to pipe proof my office because Oklahoma has been so horrible for smoking a pipe recently that I've just like stopped because you never find a good day where there's either no wind or it's like not way too hot or not way too cold. Oklahoma sucks for that. FYI. Yeah, Pipes by Drew. Have you read any of the ancient scrolls of the Bible? So I haven't read any of like the actual images of the scrolls, but I have. It's what's called the Novum Testamentum Graeis. It's just, we call it the Nessel Alland. So this is like the critical edition of the New Testament. This is like what got me through like the 4 semesters of Greek that I took at OBU. This is a really solid one, but I almost wish I had like a reader's version for like all of the words that appear like less than 10 times. But this is really solid. So I haven't read like any like specific manuscripts unless it's on like I don't know, like sometimes Daily Dose of Greek and sometimes what's his face. Who's that samurai Canadian, like samurai sword Canadian guy who like does Greek stuff? Sometimes he'll have like a facsimile or facsimile is what it's called of like a manuscript. I'll be able to read that. But the thing with those is they lack some of the modern like accents, and a lot of the time those older manuscripts are like all uppercase. So it's kind of hard to read because I'm used to like uppercase at the beginning of sentences, like later manuscripts or later copies of the manuscripts, just because it's a lot more legible, because sometimes the words can blend together and you don't know where one word starts and another word or stops and another word begins. So that's kind of hard. But yeah. Have you heard of John Root? Would love to see him. I have heard of John Root. I forget who he is. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to do a dialogue with him. Right now, I'm looking to go live on a panel. So Ryan at needgod.net has been doing these anti-Catholic videos for the longest time, and he always equivocates between the necessary conditions of final salvation with the conditions needed for the reception of initial justification. And what he does is he goes to the Catechism and he'll say, look, the Catechism says that keeping the commandments is necessary for the reception of salvation. And he'll say, but Paul says that in Romans 2:8-10 that we were saved by grace through faith apart from works. So how can the Catechism, so it's just an equivocation fallacy. And so I want to dialogue with him just whenever he goes live again, because he'll have these Catholics on that are ill prepared for having a discussion, who, even if they know, which a lot of them don't, but even if they know the basics of Catholic soteriology, they'll fumble because they've never encountered an evangelical like Ryan using these kinds of proof texts and rhetoric against, he'll say things about being absolutely sure, like having 100% certainty that you're going to heaven and things like that. And it's just that sort of rhetoric people aren't prepared for because they're not familiarized with that line of rhetoric. And so I'd like to have a conversation with him soon. When I have the time, I'm the only reason I'm streaming right now is because I have a little bit of time. The video I'm editing for Carla right now isn't due until till the end of the week, so I've got a little bit of time right now. But and then outside of work hours, it's kind of hard because of the kids. But just reimburse the cost of the materials, dog, and we're good, dude. Okay, whenever you can get started on that, I will 1,000% pay for that. If you haven't seen Drew's, go, what is it, Pipes by Drew on Instagram, go follow Drew's Instagram and look at the kinds of pipes he's making. They're absolutely insane. Like, he could easily sell those for like $300. Easy. Braden, check out the EHV translation methodology. It's purely Lutheran, but the Old Testament favors a lot of the alternate Hebrew, LXX, and Dead Sea Scrolls, Vulgate over them. Oh, that's really nice. See, that's something that I've really wanted to get into and I have a few books on the Septuagint. One is a more critical work, and one is more favorable as regards to the Septuagint, because one's called When God Spoke Greek, and the other one is, what is it? It's on my translation of the 70s. So I have two Septuagint works that I want to get through, and you see the New Testament authors, especially, probably like 80 to 90% of their quotations from the Old Testament come directly from the LXX. And there's some evidence that the LXX was actually the liturgical text used in the diaspora, simply because Greek was the common language. And so the Apostolic Fathers especially, but even the Apostles and Christ, constantly quoted to or alluded to the specific phrasing of the LXX, even when it goes against the Masoretic text, which is like the standard Hebrew text that we use for translations today. And so, for example, the prophecy of Isaiah talking about how a virgin will give birth, that's actually coming from the Septuagint. Because in the Masoretic text, the direct translation of that word, of that noun, isn't virgin, it's young woman. And so, yeah, that's something that you'll get into in apologetics with Jews. So, yeah, I'll definitely check out the EHV. I've never heard of that, unless maybe I remember you talking about that actually. How did your family respond to your conversion? So that's a funny story, because me and my wife are the only Catholics in our like immediate family. She actually has two, like an aunt and an uncle who are Catholic. I actually don't think that they're like direct aunt and uncle. I think that they're her grandmother's sibling and her husband. I forget. Anyways, there's some connection there. And so, like, you can imagine growing up in a Baptist adjacent family, and with her side of the family being like Reformed Baptist, it was mixed. But some of my family was kind of open to it, wanted to talk about it, and they're actually kind of on the road the Emmaus Road. Oh, thank you for the super chat. God bless you. Graceful Journeys 3-in-1. Thank you for that $20 donation. I really appreciate it. Yeah, man, I wish I could display these. Come on. OBS needs to have it all native, guys. It's like Premiere Pro. There's so many things like tracking that you need like plugins and extensions for that are paid that should just be in the software to begin with. Anyways, I'll stop nerding out about like software stuff. But yeah, thank you so much. And so it was partially positive, partially negative. Some of it was like absolutely insane. And then like now the people who are open to it, just like we always talk about it, and the people who are like extremely negative about it, it's just like one of those things that you don't talk about. It's like you go to like Thanksgiving, and it's like if it's a mixed company, you don't talk about politics at all, because it'll just turn into a big argument and no one's gonna win. And you have moments where it's like, oh, this is what's going on at our church. Here's some events that's happening, or like leading OCIA or stuff like that, to where you kind of talk about it a little bit, or like they'll have questions about it, but it really isn't a topic of discussion because it wouldn't be fruitful. And that's where you got to exercise the virtue of prudence, because obviously we're called to share our faith, and because it's important. All the doctrines of the Catholic Church, you have to believe in them. And but there's a wise way to go about it, right? And so if engaging or beginning a conversation about that faith is going to turn into something that will dispel them away from embracing the truth of the Catholic faith, you have to actually look out for those opportunities in which it would be prudent to bring it up, instead of like constantly going at it. So it's a delicate balance. Some people have showed more interest as the years go on, but that's kind of how it is. Why only 38 minutes? Because it will be 5 o'clock. That's why. That's when the workday ends, and my son is expecting me to come out and play with him. That's why 38 minutes. I've been trying to discern what church to join for 3 years now. Went through Prot until a couple years ago. Then went to Eastern Orthodox for a year, but now in Catholic. But I've realized there's no way to discern truth. So, the Catholic tradition identifies these things called motives of credibility. And we confess the four major ones in the creed. So Catholicity, unity, holiness, one holy Catholic apostolic church. Apostolicity and things like that. But also those extend out. So if you see that there are certain qualities from people in the church enabled by the Catholic faith, or just in the church in general, you will, in my opinion, you will see from the motives of credibility alone that it's more likely that the Catholic faith is true. But obviously, it's hard with a sort of scientific knowledge to prove this church versus that church, because you can get into endless disputes. And if you're waiting to have like this sort of 100% certainty to where all of your doubts, or not doubts, but really difficulties are resolved solidly, then that's just an impossible epistemic position to put yourself in. And, we have to make a lot of probabilistic decisions in our life. So I would just say, look into the motives of credibility. If you don't know what those are, I'm sure Catholic Answers has a few good articles on it, but there's in my opinion, there's dogmatic truths that are provable through scripture and tradition, but there's also just like the general holiness, the eminent holiness, miracles, things like the prophecies that have always accompanied the Catholic Church throughout the ages, although that might, wane at some time. So, at first, I thought the case for the papacy was pretty straightforward. Upon more and more reading, I realized that the historicity of it is all confusing. I, as a layman, have no realistic to know. Yeah, it's really hard, too, because when you get into these discussions about the papacy as it relates to history, there's a lot of good books that I could recommend to you that are short as well. If you're a layman, you don't have a lot of time to read, I would honestly suggest Adrian Fortescue, The Early Papacy. And so that discusses the papacy up until, I believe, the third or fourth ecumenical council. I think it's the fourth ecumenical council. The proofs for the papacy, because when it comes to like discerning between Orthodox and Catholic, the discussion surrounds the not primarily the filioque, not primarily the essence energies thing, not those things, or purgatory. It surrounds papacy. It surrounds the role of the Pope, the authority, the jurisdiction, and things like that. And I think that from the earliest sources that we have, but even getting more and more explicit over time within the first 1,000 years of church history, it's extremely easy to prove if you can do the reading. That the Pope functioned with this sort of office, with this sort of authority, with this sort of universal jurisdiction. And so Adrian Fortescue, but if you want like an absolute tome, Eric Ibarra's book on the papacy is like, it hasn't even been out for that long, but it draws upon all of these works and solidifies them and presents them. And it's almost like a reference work. And that's what Eric Ibarra had actually said about it, is it's meant to be used as a reference work. And so if you have a particular question about these troubled passages of history, I would definitely pick that up. It's kind of like a pretty penny. I think it's like $50 or something like that. But he does these, he does a lot of live stream interviews, as well as just lectures on some of these hard points in history. And so, yeah, there might be some like trouble passages, like a few trouble passages or trouble popes, so to say. But I think overall, the case for the papacy, when you take into consideration the consent of the fathers, rather than getting into the weeds of history, I think it's more clearly in support of the Catholic position. When's the trip to Poland? Man, I don't know. You know, if I had to like be reborn and pick like a country, like it's like civilization or something, I probably pick Poland, because it's like the most Catholic. It's so based. Every time I hear about Poland, it's like always good. Like when I'm scrolling through Instagram, it's like, oh yeah, Poland, like look at their military, like has like an icon on it and stuff like that. It's so sick. So I don't know. As soon as I can, thoughts on the SSPX consecration. I don't really have, when it comes to SSPX and FSSP and like all like Society of, what all those things, I just have like no public opinion on it, because my primary responsibility, as I see it, my primary knowledge base is Catholic Protestant discussions. But as I've seen, I think if you try and ordain bishops apart from the consent of Rome, it's an automatic excommunication. So don't do that, I guess. That's my thoughts. Drew makes pipes. Yeah, go follow him. Brother Ryan runs from the written liturgy of James the Apostle and proceedings of the Council of Jerusalem, which refutes his theology. Yeah, I've seen how he treats that, especially as regards to the necessity of obedience for salvation. And really, that's not one of the first passages I'd go to when we're discussing church authority. I think the primary ones are like, the typical magisterial proof texts like Matthew 18, Matthew 16, about binding and loosing and things like that. But also the passage in Romans that talks about how, who will hear the gospel unless someone's sent, right, to preach it to them. And that idea of mission, immediate mission, as well as the pastoral epistles of St. Paul. I think those are pretty on the nose in critiquing that sort of ecclesiology, as well as like, as well as just like the fact that it's completely novel and he doesn't give a crap. Just to put it frankly, he doesn't care that his ecclesiology, his baptismal theology, his soteriology is entirely novel. And that's the sort of Protestant that is just like, you can barely have a conversation with them about it. I love talking to my Lutheran friend Peyton, who was in the chat, about soteriology, because it's like we have so much more in common, and we care about the faith of the church fathers. It's a lot easier to justify, in my opinion. I don't think that Lutheran soteriology is necessarily justified by the fathers, but it's much easier to make an argument for the Lutheran position from church history than it would be someone like Ryan. How can need God be sure of his salvation if he thinks literally anyone who interprets Scripture is fallible? I think that, and so Carlo actually just did Dr. Carlo. If you haven't subscribed to Dr. Carlo yet, you need to. Carlo Broussard is like one of the most slept on apologists because he hasn't had a YouTube channel until like a month ago. Go subscribe to Dr. Carlo on YouTube. Make sure it says Dr. Carlo. He just did a video on 1 John. Gosh, I forget the reference. It's a passage in 1 John about how it's these things are written so that you may know that you have eternal life. And it's passages like these that Protestants like Ryan, not all Protestants. I think I just need to make an aside here. When I say Protestants, I'm not making a general sweeping statement about all Protestants. But they'll take passages like that and they will interpret them so as to say that you can have this sort of infallible certainty, a certainty that excludes all doubt as to whether you are saved, because these things are written so that you may know, and so that must mean a sort of knowledge that excludes all doubt, despite your fallible knowledge of what the Scriptures teach, as well as your fallible knowledge as to whether you're actually going to persevere until the end. So. Yeah, Drew's telling me to get a Mac and use Ecamm. I can't do that, guys, because Mac sucks. Mac sucks. Sorry. And DaVinci sucks. DaVinci's not as bad as Mac, though. Braden, just do a display capture of the YouTube chat and crop it. That's probably true, but what if it scrolls? Before, when you said Romans 2:8-10, I did mean Ephesians. I did not mean to say Romans. Excuse me. Have you ever played Dance Dance Revolution to a Gregorian chant? No, because I haven't played Dance Dance Revolution since I was like 12 or something. Maybe I should do that if we ever hit like 100,000, but I don't think that's happening. Yeah, thank you for that CCC paragraph 156 about the motives of credibility. Go check that out. It also doesn't help that the Vatican has so much drama happening every other day, but I suppose that's just simply a human thing. Yeah, so this is actually, I'm writing a Catholic Answers article on this right now, and it kind of touches this, but the very fact that communication is done so rapidly and immediately, and Pope St. John the Sixth, or sorry, excuse me, Pope St. Paul the Sixth, actually talked about this in his World Communications Day, I believe. Unless it was an encyclical, I'm getting them mixed up. But the very fact that communication is done so rapidly and wildly, and it's kind of like a race to publication. Speaking of, I need to send in that next draft. I was sick last week, and so I completely forgot. The fact that communication is done so quickly nowadays, it kind of prevents us from really considering it and really letting it resonate and meditating upon it and thinking it through. Because the moment a news article drops about the Vatican, which the Vatican is like the freaking main character of the world, like anytime anything happens, it's like everyone's reporting about the Vatican. It's like you're racing to see what they say, and then you have to like figure out, okay, how are they misinterpreting it? Because 99 times out of 100 they are. And then it's like you have non-Catholic family members or friends who are going to ask you about it. So for example, Fiducia Supplicans, no one read the actual document, and they all went by the news reporting. The Vatican allows for, blessing homosexuality or homosexual unions and things like that. And it's like, if you just read the document, a lot of this would be cleared up. But the fact of the matter is, everyone is expecting immediate citation, immediate proofs, immediate interaction with everything. And it just doesn't allow you to sit and to contemplate the actual issues. So that sucks. Like, even if like the stuff that's happening at the Vatican or with the Pope or particular bishops or whatever, even if that's like actually something to be concerned about, it doesn't really matter, because we're all put on the defensive immediately, and we're expected to respond to it within a matter of hours. So it's really annoying. Mother-loving Christian, what is up? I hope everyone enjoyed your cameo in the music video. You killed it, bro. Why are you Catholic if it was John the Baptist instead of John the Catholic? Shoot. I know. I'm coping at this point. Where do babies come from? Jesus. Kyle, stop asking me these questions. Ask me something as it relates to theology. Now, if it doesn't relate to theology, I'm just going to turn it back. I'm going to say Jesus. I'm going to turn it back into something theologically based. Poland is based. Thoughts on a messenger of heresy? Sorry, I thought I meant a messenger of truth. I recognize the name. I'm not too familiar. Messenger of truth. Isn't that someone on Twitter? Not sure. Drew2943. I actually thought, looking at your profile picture for a second, I thought you were cleaved to antiquity. You kind of, from here, you kind of look like cleaved to antiquity. You and Adrian were both important in bringing me to the fullness of the faith. Thank you for your work. Thank you so much. Those words mean more to me than you know, and thank you for the donation. I'm very happy to hear that. Agree. The liturgy of St. James has Eucharistic prayer and veneration of Mother Mary, so Ryan's interpretation is toast. Yeah, and honestly, it's like, it doesn't even matter when you appeal to even the earliest church fathers, even though Ryan does. You know, for example, I believe he's one of the Baptists, evangelical Baptists, who will cite like Tertullian and St. Gregory of Nyssa, I believe, or maybe it's Nazianzus, in their advocation for the delayment of baptism. And so they'll cite these church fathers who say you need to wait, or you should probably wait to baptize people, as if they denied the efficacy and the validity of infant baptism. And then when you give them the context and you show actually the consent of the fathers is that infant baptism was passed down from the apostles themselves, and infants need baptism because they're born in original sin, all these things. It's like, well, that doesn't really matter because the Bible's all that matters. And so it's like they'll bring up these like clever proof texts from their quote mining that they got off of like the Gospel Coalition or Got Questions, and then at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter if they support their if those quotations support their position. It's really annoying. Why are German bishops of the SSPX so liberal? I don't know. I can think of a few schismatic movements from Germany in the past 500 years. Anyways, sorry, Peyton. I just went up in the chat. My bad. Catholics believe we will have physical bodies in heaven. So does that mean working out on earth will transfer our gains into heaven, especially at the age of 33? That's a question for St. Thomas. I think that so when we confess the resurrection of our bodies in the Apostles' Creed, which it's still implicitly contained in the Nicene Creed, but especially the Apostles' Creed, and especially if you read like passages like 1 Corinthians 15 and I believe it's 1 Thessalonians 5, there's this, and especially Revelation, will be resurrected with actual like bodies, right? Our bodies will be resurrected, obviously with different properties, but we'll be immortal, things like that. We'll have spiritual bodies, but doesn't necessarily mean immaterial bodies. And so, can we transfer our gains into heaven? That's a question for St. Thomas, but I think all of our bodies will probably be in peak physical condition. I don't know. There's a book by N.T. Wright that I love to read while I was a Baptist, and I forget the name of it, doggone it, but N.T. Wright used to write some really good books, but now he's like super liberal, so... goodness, A Surprise by Hope, I believe it's called. I forget the subtitle. It's a pretty good book. One moment, my wife is calling me. Watch my intro a few times.
Excellinum crucis, in salus mundi pepente. Excellinum crucis, in salus mundi pepente.
My mic. All right. That's my cue. I'll answer 5 more questions and then I'm leaving. It was a wonderful time streaming with you guys. I promise next time it'll be longer. All right. Let's see. Ah, shoot. My video. Inter Mirifica Community St. Paul VI. W. Thoughts on Trent's conversation with Taco Talks. Funny thing, I edited that video. And yeah, it was pretty fun. I think people are like, they're responding in one of 2 ways. They're saying Taco Talks is a gooner. He's a Calvinist gooner. You can't listen to him anymore. Which, like, to be honest, like, his takes were kind of gay on the whole, like, if you don't know what I'm referring to, he believes that it's not a sin for married couples to abuse themselves as long as they're thinking about their spouse, if they're not together. So like on a work trip or something like that. People will like clip that and post it on Twitter and attribute that to Protestantism. I think that's a little unfair, but I think Taco deserves the flack for that. And then Taco will go on and like say, Trent misrepresented me, blah, blah, blah. Dude, the whole interview was like him just asking questions about your soteriology. It's like, Trent misrepresented me because he said I'm a Protestant. Because the video was called Interviewing a Protestant. But I said I wasn't a Protestant. It's like, okay, you sell merch with the solas on it. You say you're not a Christian unless you affirm the 5 solas. You say you're a Calvinist, although you say the only reason you use that label is for convenience, but nonetheless, you say you're a Calvinist. You affirm like all of like the dictionary definition Protestant distinctives. It's not lying about you to say you're a Protestant. Okay? You're not a magisterial Protestant. You're like one of like the one of the radical reform Protestant movements that arose in the 17th century. But yeah, I mean, it's just so dumb. Excuse me. Like his interaction with that is just, and then he went on Ryan's channel to talk about it. It's just ridiculous. Like all he was doing was asking you questions, and it's like he interrogated me. Like, dude, it was an interview. He was asking you questions. It wasn't a dialogue about anything in specific other than asking you about salvation. Like that was the whole point of the video. We will just need to have another video together now. Yeah, we do. We've needed another video together for the past year. Heaven will be beyond peak. Rethinking heaven, the resurrection, the mission of Christ, the suitable. Yeah, is the subtitle of the New Testament or of the N.T. Wright book. Yeah, I said New Testament because I saw N.T. Yeah. Oh yeah, my bad, Steven. Hey, Steven, how's it going? That was loud. When is it? Oh, I forgot. Dude, Minecraft came out with like an update or 2 ever since we last posted. I need to find a video or a topic. I might just start doing my OCIA lectures on Minecraft and see how that goes. I need to do another Minecraft Let's Play. How do we educate Protestant parents? I think encouraging an environment for dialogue where you're not like saying like Catholics believe, like you're inviting them to ask questions, and that's probably one of the best ways for them to learn anyways. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. So yeah, say I'm Catholic, do you have any questions, or just like let it come naturally, or the best way is just to practice your faith and let those questions come naturally, because if you're trying to be overzealous about it and proselytize, it's just like it gets annoying and they'll shut their ears, and we don't want to facilitate that. So I think the best way is to just keep the door open, a dialogue, and that's probably one of the best ways that I've seen growth in my kind of side of things. So thoughts on the Epstein files. All right, so today it's been a good stream. I think that everyone in Hollywood and anyone in any major political office is probably implicated and the world is run by Satanists, if that gives you an idea of where I'm at. So I'm very black-pilled on that. But honestly, like, there's nothing I can do about it, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, thanks for the questions, guys. I am done streaming. I'm going to go play with my boys, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And next time I'll actually, like, schedule the live stream for more than 30 seconds from when I'm actually going to start it. So anyways, have a wonderful day. I hope that, you know, by my I was trying to remember how I end these videos. I hope that by my learning the faith, your faith will be strengthened as well. You have an amazing day, and listen to my intro one more time.
Excellidum crucis, in salus mundi pepente.